When we talk about the secret pleasures women carry within them, one of the most profound is the quiet joy they find in their private rituals. These moments are rarely dramatic, and they're almost never performed for an audience. In fact, the beauty of these rituals is that they live in the unseen spaces of a woman's life. They are deeply personal, almost sacred, and understanding them gives us a window into a woman's emotional architecture, how she restores herself, how she processes her world, and how she reconnects with her own center. For many women, these rituals act as a form of emotional grounding. Something as simple as taking an extra 5 minutes in the shower, lining up skincare bottles in a particular order, or sitting alone in silence before the day begins. These moments allow her to reclaim ownership of herself. It's not about vanity or indulgence, it's about alignment. It's a way of saying, before I pour into anyone else, I return to who I am. What often goes unnoticed is how intentional these rituals truly are. They aren't just habits, they are micro practices of self-awareness. A woman may not label it as meditation, but in those quiet moments, she is listening inward. She's sorting through feelings, softening the noise of the day, and reconnecting with her inner compass. These rituals help her navigate her emotional world with more clarity because they create a space where she can be completely unmasked, free of expectations, free of performance. And this is why these rituals are often hidden, not out of secrecy, but out of protection. When something brings genuine peace, you don't want the world to tamper with it. You guard it, you preserve it, you hold it closely because it is the one moment where you don't have to justify your needs or negotiate your boundaries. That privacy becomes part of the pleasure. It's the feeling of having something that is yours and yours alone. There is also a psychological truth embedded here. Solitude is a form of nourishment. Many women thrive in their ability to create small sanctuaries within their everyday lives. These rituals help them maintain emotional resilience and a sense of autonomy. In the presence of constant demands, family, work, relationships, these pockets of solitude restore their sense of control. They remind them that their lives are not defined solely by responsibility, but by choice. If we look deeper, we see something even more powerful. These private rituals are not just moments of rest, they are acts of self-respect. They demonstrate the understanding that a woman's well-being begins with honoring her internal world. And in a society that often rewards constant output, the decision to withdraw even briefly becomes an act of quiet rebellion, a declaration that her inner life has value. So when a woman retreats into her rituals, she is not disappearing, she is returning to herself, to her strength, to her own voice. And that return is what allows her to emerge with clarity, compassion, and depth. Remember this, the quietest rituals often hold the loudest truths. There's another quiet pleasure many women carry, one that often lives beneath the surface of their interactions, the simple, almost private joy of observing the man they care about. It's not always expressed out loud, and it doesn't need to be, but it's there, in the way she pauses for a half-second when he speaks, in the calm attentiveness she gives when he moves about the room, in the small smile that appears when he's not even looking. This pleasure isn't about possession or control. It's about presence. It's about witnessing someone she values, not for what he does, but for who he is when no one is watching. Psychologically, this quiet observation is a form of emotional studying. Women often learn people not through grand gestures, but through details. The way a man sits when he's tired, the shift in his voice when he's worried, the lightness that emerges when he's genuinely laughing. She takes in these subtle cues not out of scrutiny, but out of genuine care. It helps her understand him more deeply, and that understanding becomes an emotional bridge she builds without ever announcing it. There is also something deeply grounding about admiration that doesn't demand reciprocity. A woman can appreciate the strength in a man's shoulders, the steadiness in his tone, the confidence in his stride, without needing to declare it. Those moments become her own internal narrative. They allow her to feel connected, not through dramatic displays, but through quiet recognition. And that recognition becomes a silent form of intimacy. We often assume intimacy must be shared to exist. But private affection is just as powerful, sometimes more. Because when a woman admires a man silently, she's choosing to hold that moment close, almost like a keepsake. She's not looking for approval. She's not angling for a response. She is simply allowing herself to feel the warmth that comes from appreciating someone deeply. That is a pleasure she rarely puts into words because it feels too delicate, too personal to expose to the world. There's also a philosophical truth hidden here. Observation is a form of love. To truly see someone without filters, without expectation, without demand, is to honor them. And many women do this instinctively. They notice what others overlook, they catch the micro-expressions, the unspoken emotions, the quiet vulnerabilities, and they hold that awareness with care. It becomes part of the way they love, even if they never say it out loud. And perhaps this is why the pleasure remains hidden, not because it is secretive, but because it is sacred. Because to admire someone quietly is to let the truth unfold in its own time. It is to trust that connection doesn't always need to be declared. It can simply be felt deeply and honestly. So when a woman sits back and observes the man she loves, she is not being distant or silent. She is absorbing his presence. She is appreciating the essence of who he is. She is connecting in the most human way, through awareness. And the message is simple: learn to notice the people you love. Because in seeing them clearly, you learn to love them better. There is a truth many women hold quietly inside, a truth they rarely voice out loud: the deep, affirming pleasure of feeling desired. Not just noticed, not just acknowledged, but genuinely wanted. It's a feeling that reaches beyond the surface of admiration and touches something far more personal, something tied to identity, worth, and emotional connection. And yet, even though this desire for desire is universal, many women hide it. They've been taught not to appear needy, not to crave affection too openly, not to reveal how much being wanted actually matters. But it does matter. It matters profoundly. There is a psychological reason for this. Human beings thrive on being mirrored, on seeing themselves reflected back with appreciation and longing. For women especially, desire is not merely physical, it is emotional validation. It reassures her that she is seen, not just for what she gives or how she serves, but for who she is at her core. When a woman feels desired, she feels chosen, and that sense of being chosen strengthens her confidence in the relationship and within herself. But here's the nuance: it's not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It's often the small things that hold the greatest weight. The way a man reaches for her hand without thinking, the softness in his voice when he calls her name, the attentive gaze that lingers just a second longer than usual. These subtle expressions signal, I see you, I want you, you matter in this moment. And that creates a kind of warmth that women rarely confess to craving but deeply cherish. There's also a philosophical depth to this need. Desire in its purest form is acknowledgement. It says your existence has an impact on my world. It celebrates her presence. And many women carry a private pleasure in knowing they can evoke that feeling in someone they care about. It's not manipulation, it's connection. It's the reassurance that intimacy is alive, that the spark hasn't dimmed, that her presence still lights something inside someone else. Yet, because society often frames this longing as weakness, many women swallow it. They say, I don't need anything, when the truth is they do, just like everyone else. They hide the hope that someone will notice the details: the new hairstyle, the subtle perfume, the effort behind the scenes. They pretend indifference because vulnerability feels risky, and wanting to be wanted feels almost too honest. But this hidden pleasure is rooted in something powerful. When a woman feels desired, it animates her, it opens her, it softens her, it makes her feel more whole, not because she depends on someone else's validation, but because the experience of mutual desire activates her deepest sense of feminine energy, receptive, intuitive, alive. And maybe that is the lesson for all of us: desire isn't a weakness. It's a form of communication, a quiet dialogue between two souls saying, I see you and I want to be close. When expressed sincerely, it becomes a bridge that strengthens connection on every level: physical, emotional, and spiritual. So let this settle in your heart. Never underestimate the power of making someone feel wanted. It doesn't just touch their body, it awakens their spirit. There is a quiet, almost invisible pleasure many women hold close, one that shapes how they move through relationships and the world: the pleasure of choice, of control, and of maintaining a sense of mystery. This isn't about manipulation or secrecy, it's about agency. It's about the deep satisfaction that comes from deciding what to reveal, when to reveal it, and to whom. And although women rarely speak openly about this, it forms a powerful part of their emotional landscape. Choice is one of the purest forms of freedom. For many women, having control over their inner world, what they share, what they protect, what they express, creates a sense of safety. It allows them to engage on their own terms. In a world where women are often expected to be open, available, and constantly expressive, choosing to hold some things back becomes a form of self-preservation. It becomes a way of honoring themselves. And there is pleasure in that autonomy, a quiet joy in knowing that not everything has to be exposed to be real. Mystery, too, holds its own power. Not the kind that creates distance, but the kind that preserves dignity. Women often enjoy keeping certain parts of their emotions, dreams, or fears tucked away until they feel truly understood. It's not a game, it's discernment. It's the wisdom of recognizing that intimacy grows slowly, and that some truths deserve careful timing. There is a sweetness in unveiling the self gradually, allowing others to meet you layer by layer. That slow reveal creates depth, it builds anticipation, it strengthens connection. Psychologically, this sense of selective openness gives women the space to process their emotions without external pressure. It lets them sit with their thoughts before sharing them. It ensures that their voice emerges from clarity instead of reaction, and that ability to self-regulate, to choose the moment rather than be pushed into it, is a form of emotional mastery many women value deeply. There's also a philosophical dimension here. Mystery is not about withholding, it's about honoring the sacredness of the self. Every human being has an inner sanctuary, a private terrain where their deepest truths lie. Women often protect that space, not because they fear being known, but because they cherish authenticity. They want their revelations to be meaningful, not mechanical. They want to be understood, not merely observed. And the pleasure of choice extends beyond emotional boundaries. It appears in how women decide who enters their life, who earns their trust, and who is allowed close. It shows up in deciding how much energy to give, when to step back, and when to lean in. These moments of choice build self-respect. They remind a woman that she has agency in shaping her relationships, her path, and her identity. So when a woman holds something back, it's not always distance, it's wisdom. When she reveals something slowly, it's not hesitation, it's intention. And when she embraces her mystery, it's not to confuse, it's to protect the depth of who she is until she knows it will be honored. Remember this: the most powerful connections are built not on exposure, but on choice. And the more we honor our own boundaries, the more fully we can show up in the moments that truly matter.